Okay, folks. Everyone, I wanted to know, should I let you know when you've got 15 minutes to go? And my comment was that this should not take a full hour because unfortunately there really is not a lot known about narcolepsy as we age. In reality, there's only been one study that has been published actually looking at narcoleptics over the age of 65. And there was a more recent poster that was presented at the World Sleep Meeting, which was just last month, on the epidemiology of narcolepsy in patients above the age of 60. But there was there were no data that really said what does or does not happen. It was more like these are patients who have these kinds of symptoms. So what I would like to do for this, or at least part of this lecture, is not so much talk about narcolepsy as we age, but talk about sleep as we age. There's no reason to believe that narcoleptic sleep, although impaired because there is dysfunction on the sleep-wake flip-flop switch, that when you look at large numbers of patients who have aging and sleep-related disorders, not necessarily narcolepsy, that the same kinds of issues would not apply for the narcoleptic population as well. So, that being said, let's start. Now, anybody know the significance of this cover slide?
It's a tree.
With rings, there you go. So, we can cut trees down and we can measure how old the tree is. We can't do that to human beings, can we? But, so far. So I thought that this was a great way to start the lecture of narcolepsy as we age, by being able to say some animal and plant species you can know immediately what their age is. Now, interestingly enough, I have no conflicts with this talk because I'm really not going to be talking about pharmacologic therapy, but I do want you to see what I have done in terms of my past research support and advisory board memberships. And I have worked for companies from Jazz, Avadel, Harmony, and Aerial Pharmaceuticals. And currently, I am entering my 5th week of employment at Takeda Pharmaceuticals. And I was asked to give this disclaimer that the presentation reflects my personal views and opinions and does not necessarily reflect the position of Takeda Pharmaceuticals. Fortunately, I don't think anything I'm about to say is going to come into conflict with my company. So, that being said, let's start. So, questions we all need to ask. And I know some of you have submitted questions already. But let me tell you some of the questions that I, as a sleep physician, want answers to. Are you productive, happy, and healthy on 7 hours of sleep per night? Does it take you 9 hours of quality sleep to get you into high gear? Can you get out of bed and be bright-eyed and bushy-tailed? Or does it require a small thermonuclear reaction to get you out of bed? Do you have health issues such as being overweight? Are you at risk for any diseases? And I think you heard lectures this morning that showed that narcoleptics suffer the same consequences as everybody else when they are afflicted with things like obesity, hypertension, diabetes, increased risk for you snore? Does your bed partner snore and keep you up? And that doesn't have to be, just the man snoring. Women after menopause have the same incidence of sleep apnea as men do. Do you depend on caffeine to get you through the day if you're not a narcoleptic? Do you feel sleepy when you drive for long distances? So these are questions that I want to know, and when I see patients, these are some of the questions that I put to them. This is a slide that was originated with the National Sleep Foundation. And I have this in every one of my exam rooms, because what it shows is that as we age, there is a natural progression of changes in our sleep patterns. Newborns sleep on average between 14 and 17 hours per night. And then when we get to the older adults, we sleep on average of 7 to 8 hours per night. And you see the maximum and minimum averages above those numbers. But you see that there is a steady decline. One of the characteristics of sleep over the age of 65 is increased wakefulness after sleep onset. And in the sleep field, we have eponyms for all kinds of stuff, and we call that WASO, wakefulness after sleep onset. There's also a phenomenon called early morning awakenings, which are also part and parcel of aging. Now, the quality of sleep as we age also changes, and we're going to talk about that in a moment. But I just wanted you to get an idea that normal folks, general population, all exhibit changes in sleep as we age. So this slide in bullet points kind of summarizes the graphs that I just showed you. And one of the things I want to point out here is the fourth bullet point from the bottom. Teenagers. And I was at a support group meeting, and I said to one of the participants who said, well, he's 16 years old and he wants to be able to party as much as he can. And I said, well, that's the biggest disease that you have. You're 16. And he's not alone. Having had 2 daughters go through that, and now payback is wonderful. Because the greatest thing that a parent can do is watch their children rear their children. And all of a sudden, all the stuff that I was such an idiot to say sounds so smart to them now. So I kind of cherish when I listen to my daughters tell their kids, you need to go to bed on time. You got to put away your phone, your computer, or whatever else you're doing and get to bed. So I feel vindicated. But I want you to take a look at these numbers, because ages 14 to 17, and I guess younger adults 18 to 25, all suffer from the same issue, and that is social media overload in 2019. We spend far too much time on our iPhones, our iPads, our computers. And there is not just the matter of spending time when you should be sleeping, but there are physiologic consequences of doing that. White light after 10 o'clock interferes with everybody's sleep. And the reason is that light decreases the secretion of a very important hormone in the body called melatonin. And you can block the production or the secretion of melatonin from one specific part of the brain called the pineal by exposing yourself to bright white light. And in people who are particularly susceptible, that decrease in melatonin secretion will make it harder for you to fall asleep. And we disease that is called delayed sleep phase syndrome that is populated by teenagers, 14 all the way through young adults through age 25, where they can't fall asleep until 2 in the morning, and then they can't get up at 7 or 8 in the morning, and they would prefer, and their bodies prefer, that they sleep until about 10 in the morning to noon. That's what I was talking about when I said a small thermonuclear reaction to get them out of bed. I've had patients where parents have tried to get their kids up for school, where they've taken a pitcher of cold water, I mean a full pitcher of ice water, and poured it over the kid's head. That still didn't wake them up. I had another parent who literally flipped the mattress. That got the kid up, but it also gave him a big hematoma on the side of his scalp. But the issue is that this represents a real difficulty to wake up. And it doesn't have to be that severe. Just by sitting and staring at your iPhone at midnight is enough to make it harder for you to wake up in the morning. And whether you have narcolepsy or not, in fact, narcoleptics are probably more susceptible to that. Because one of the behavioral treatments that we advocate for narcolepsy is to stick to a regular sleep-wake schedule and to avoid bright light exposure past 9 o'clock at night. That's part and parcel of what the mantra that we give our patients. So I wanted to point that out to all of you. Now, these are graphs of normals. I think you've seen the top graph for normal sleep in the young adult, age 20, perhaps. And then an older adult, perhaps 65 or older. And in the first graph, let me walk over here. You see the red bars. Thus represents REM sleep. And again, narcoleptics do not have this very pretty kind of sequence. But let's just make believe that you do for a moment. Every 90 minutes or thereabouts, there's a red bar. And you can see that red bar is getting longer as the night progresses. The longest and deepest and strongest REM period of the night is right before waking. Typically, the person wakes up here, not necessarily over here. Contrast that, if you will, for the older adult. First of all, this individual had one nocturnal awakening, and that's the top bar right there. How many awakenings are in this graph, in this hypnogram? Huge number. Count them, I would say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 awakenings. Some longer than others. This individual, I'm sure, will tell me that if I spoke to them in the morning, they have recollection of 2 periods of wakefulness. The others are probably too short for them to have a cognizant realization that they were awake. So this is right off a major change in sleep. And this is not abnormal. You go into a doctor and you say, I'm waking up through the night, that perhaps you wake up here and you can't go back to sleep. Don't ask for a sleeping pill. That's like saying, give me a pill to prevent me from getting older. You can't do it. No sleeping pill in the world is going to fix this. It's part of aging. I've come to accept it being way beyond that point. So it's something you have to think about. Now, one of the interesting things is that there's a difference between men and women in their amount of slow wave sleep that they get. I think if you remember from lectures past, slow wave sleep is a marker of deep sleep. It's also, the more slow wave sleep you get, ostensibly, the better rested you feel in the morning. And if you measure the amount of slow-wave sleep in people as they age, which is the graph on your right, you will see that women in pink have a very small reduction in slow-wave sleep, but contrast that to the men who have a marked reduction in slow-wave sleep. But there's an interesting flip of the coin here, that women complain more of sleeplessness and lack of refreshing sleep than men do as they age. And there is no explanation for that conundrum. If you look at the graph on your left, you see subjective sleepiness increasing on the y-axis, and then the x-axis is age. And then young adults, the amount of sleep deprivation that you get. So it's a pretty straight line in terms of the longer you're awake, the sleepier you'll get, and that's what we call a linear relationship. Whereas older adults, they plateau and they stay sleepy with a small amount of sleep restriction. So young people can tolerate sleep deprivation a lot easier than older people. I'm not going to teach you physiology, but narcoleptics, I'm sure, have heard the phrase flip-flop switch. And the flip-flop switch between wakefulness and sleep in young adults who do not have narcolepsy is very stable. You have sleep onset, you have sleep offset. And like a seesaw, it stays in one position until it's perturbed to go into the other position. In older adults, it is far less stable. So perturbations to sleep, noise in the room, temperature variations, snoring for your partner, all of these things will perturb sleep, and that perturbation is far less intense to produce an awakening in the elderly as it is compared to when you were younger. Basically, what you see in green here versus which is young and O is old, what the level of neurotransmitters are in different parts of the brain. Preoptic area, and now what we're looking at Galliman cells, but these can be, you see orexin off on LHA, lateral hypothalamic area. Locus coeruleus is all the way on your right. And clearly what I want you to see here is that there is a fall off in the amount of neurotransmitters that are expressed by these very important sleep centers of the brain. Very important. Now take a look at the bottom part of the curve, and it shows you what the consequence of that fall off is. Hours spent asleep in the young versus hours of sleep in the elderly. Takes you longer to fall asleep. Number of times you flip from stages 2 to 3, 3 to REM, REM to 2, increases as we age. Fragmentation is what I showed you on the previous slide, the number of full awakenings that occur over the course of the night. This is normal aging. This is not pathology. Okay? I don't know how many people come to me and say, I'm waking up more. I can't fall back asleep. It takes me longer to fall asleep. Give me something. I wish I had a magic bullet. I don't. Now, medicine and sleep disorders as we age. You've heard this before, and there's nothing here that I'm going to tell you that you haven't exposed to. The standard medical diseases that we spoke about, hypertension, diabetes, obesity, insomnia, men are. Women who reach the ages of menarche lose a very important hormone, or two hormones really, progesterone and estrogen. These hormones are protective, and they're protective against things like sleep apnea, and they're also very important in sleep maintenance. And when you reach the menarche and start to lose concentrations of these two very important hormones, sleep is affected. So the number of women during the period of menarche, it's been estimated that greater than 60% have sleep issues. The bottom set of rectangles, snoring, sleep apnea, RLS, periodic limb movements, increase as we age. You heard about REM sleep behavior disorder earlier. This also increases with age, and also increases in terms of what medications you may be on. If you develop things like depression and you go on antidepressants, or if you are on antidepressants for cataplexy, that sets a stage for perhaps inducing a condition that we call REM sleep behavior disorder. And then there are cognitive issues of aging. The number of senior moments that I have are dramatically more than they were for me 20 years ago. Now, am I kidding myself? That's just part of normal aging. We don't know that. There are things called mild cognitive impairment that does not fit the criteria for dementia, but yet there's clearly a defect in your ability to think clearly, or as clearly as you did previously. And then, of course, there are other dementing illnesses like Alzheimer's disease and frontotemporal dementia, which are clear-cut, very kinds of specific progressive dementias. And then there are degenerative neurologic diseases other than the primary dementing illnesses, Parkinson's disease. But as Parkinson's disease progresses, cognitive issues become as important as motor issues. And then ALS. ALS can come about at any age. But ALS, as the individual progresses, you may or may not develop cognitive difficulties. I mean, there are people with ALS who go on to win Nobel Prizes, or to become the Newton Professor of Physics at Cambridge. So, not everybody develops cognitive issues, but there are a significant subpopulation who do. This is the one study. One. It's amazing that there's only one in the medical literature that actually look at patients, narcolepsy with cataplexy, in those over the age of 60. They looked at just 42 patients, type 1 narcolepsy, and they compared it to 46 patients who were age and sex match controls without narcolepsy, cataplexy. The average age of the PWNs was 72 years versus same thing, 72 years for the control group. Now, some of these results are intuitive. I mean, they did not surprise me. Greater proportion of patients with narcolepsy suffer from hypertension and type 2 diabetes. Why? You heard earlier that patients with narcolepsy have an increased body mass index and have sympathetic dyscontrol. They're non-dippers, if you will, as Dr. Ruth so beautifully put it this morning. So the development of cardiovascular disease in narcoleptics is not unexpected. More patients with narcolepsy scored higher on a scale for depression And I remember talking about this years ago, saying, what comes first, the narcolepsy or the depression? We still don't know. This is truly a chicken and egg controversy. Did you get depressed because you can no longer stay awake? You can no longer be in situations of mirth and laughter because you develop cataplexy? Or is it part and parcel of the neurological changes that give you the narcoleptic pentad? We don't know. But yet, the association is clearly there. The interesting thing is that there were no differences in any scale for cognitive functioning, meaning that narcoleptics scored the same as the normal controls in terms of memory and not only verbal memory, but recall and mental agility. Interesting that there was no difference. In spite of the narco fog, they just were not able to prove that there was any statistical difference between these groups. So what are the conclusions here? After this one study of this huge number of patients, 42, and now we're going to take these conclusions and spread them across the world. Symptoms of type 1 narcolepsy are present throughout life. Gee, what a shock. Right? To everybody sitting here. Comorbidities and lower physical fitness, known to be present in young and middle-aged narcolepsy cataplexy subjects, were also present in the older control groups. Again, not a surprise. Narcolepsy cataplexy subjects were less professionally active during their lifetime because of their illness, but did not suffer from controls in important social parameters as they got older.
Does that also apply to type 2? All those?
Don't know. No one's ever done a study with type 2. Now let me show you something that is known. This is a paper that was published in 2004, and it came out of Dr. Duvalier's laboratory in France. And there are some very interesting findings here. And it's basically good news for everybody. In black, you see MSLT data, and the open circles are sleep onset REM periods. So MSLT latency is on the y-axis here, and on the y-axis here are the number of sleep onset REM periods. Age groups are on the x-axis. As we age, the latency on the MSLT gets better. You don't get sleepier as you age. I can't tell you why that is. You're not suddenly manufacturing orexin cells, and you're not suddenly developing orexin out of God knows where in your spinal fluid. But the average time for you to fall asleep on an MSLT improves. Not to the point where you're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, but you're not as severe as you were in your 20s. The sleep onset REM periods also decrease, whereas you may have had 5 cell REMs when you had your narcolepsy first diagnosed. If we do an MSLT on you here over the age of 65, you may only have 1 or somewhere between 2 and 3. So the severity of the disease is not as great. So that's good news. Now again, this is still a relatively small number of patients, but it is comforting, at least for me, to be able to tell all of you that this is not a progressive disorder, that there seems to be stabilization, if not somewhat improvement as we get older. And I can tell you from the patients who I've seen we now have them on unitary single, what we call monotherapy, typically Xyrem. Whereas we've dropped off the medicine that we call adjunctive, meaning in addition to the main medicine, we're able to drop off the modafinil or other types of stimulants, and we're also able to drop off the medicines to treat or to augment the anti-cataleptic properties of Xyrem. So this is, again, good news. So, what is the effect of age on patients with narcolepsy and T1? Progressive decrease in the mean sleep latency in the MSLT as a function of age suggests the disease moderates as we get older. And it progresses with an improvement in daytime sleepiness, and with the decrease in sleep onset REM period seems to lessen. So you're able to stay awake longer, and your transitions in and out of REM sleep decrease. Now, from a practical standpoint for you, you can sit there and smile and say, hey, I'm not looking at a progressive downhill disorder. But this information has not gotten to the medical community, because when we see, and I have seen patients who I have had to do sleep testing on in their 50s and 60s and tell them they do or do not have narcolepsy based on the MSLT and SOREM data. I have to take in, and prior to me reading this paper, that was not taken into consideration. Now, when we look at sleep studies, as we get older, the criteria for me to describe slow-wave sleep changes. Slow-wave sleep, which is the very slow, monotonous EEG that we see, in younger patients has a voltage criteria, meaning that you measure the voltage of the brain waves from peak to trough, highest, lowest. And that has a voltage criteria. Now that voltage criteria does not take into account age. So if I look at an EEG of somebody who's 65 and I compare it to an EEG of somebody who's age 20, I may see the frequency of delta activity in the older age group, but I can't call it delta based on the conventions that we use to score sleep records. So all of a sudden on my final report, the percentage of slow-wave sleep seems to magically get much less. Now, is that a function of pathology? Is that a function that there's something wrong with their brain and their EEG? No. It's a function of the sleep community not catching up with science. And there are lots of people who are advocating for the next scoring manual that we drop this convention of looking this peak-to-peak frequencies. Because we're calling records abnormal when we shouldn't be. And that will, of course, change how we look at patients over the age of 65 on their polysomnography and their multiple sleep latency testing. So this last bullet point is a clarion cry, if you will, to the sleep community that we have to start taking age into account when we look at these sleep studies. And with that, I will take questions. I apologize for not being able to give you more information, but it ain't out there. So, sir.
On the issue of whether narcolepsy gets worse with age or not, seeing a doctor most recently said to me point blank, you're telling me that you're feeling worse and worse as you get older, and I'm pretty old. It's not narcolepsy, there's something else that's wrong. Well, everything else checks out okay. Every person that I've known with narcolepsy over the years has said it gets worse with age. The doctors are saying, no, that's not true.
Well, you've got to define what getting worse means.
Easily, reading more naps, more tired, mental fogginess is a terrible issue.
I don't disagree with you. Now, if you take a narcoleptic, what we call a phenotype, meaning what you look like, what your symptoms are, and then superimpose it on normal aging, from a symptomatic standpoint, you may feel worse. But looking at the objective testing, which was done here, we can't find it. Now, there's nothing that I'm saying to you that you're wrong. Don't misunderstand me. But the change in objective measurements is different. But, as I said, you're starting off at a deficit because you've had narcolepsy. And then when you add on to that the normal effect of aging on sleep and wakefulness, as we get older, we need more sleep. The number of naps that normal people take increase. The number of waking episodes that we have during the night increases. So, again, what we're saying is that because you have narcolepsy, those symptoms probably are exaggerated. And not in your mind, but actually physically. So, the fact that what you're telling me, I can understand. But on the same token, to treat them with an increase in stimulant medications probably is counterproductive. Well, as you get older, your blood pressure tends to increase, the elasticity of your blood vessels gets stiffer, your ability to absorb increased amounts of sympathetic activity, which is what a stimulant will give you, will make your blood pressure changes get worse. So you've got to weigh the risk versus the benefit. And sometimes the risks of giving you a secondary illness are too great to mollify some of the symptoms that you're complaining of. It's not an easy situation, but it's something every doctor needs to deal with, and I see it every day. Ma'am?
As I think about, should I be changing my medications and looking at the new ones out there, they all seem to have the side effect of raising blood pressure. And then I say to myself, I'm already trying to control blood pressure. I think I better stick with blood pressure.
You don't want to trade one poison for another. And I say that metaphorically, not actually. Considering I now work for a drug company, I have to be very careful what I say. But that's the case is, you're trading off one thing for another, and you've got to weigh the risk versus the benefit. Yeah. Sir, I'm sorry.
In the over 65, does taking sodium oxybate increase the sleep architecture compared to not taking it? Does it improve it, or does it just bring it back closer to what a normal over 65 architecture would be?
It's an interesting point. Something
Can you
that
repeat it?
the question was, does taking sodium oxybate improve your sleep architecture as you take it on a continuing basis? And what is the effect of sodium oxybate as you age? I can tell you at this point that for the past 10 years I've been asking Jazz to do that study. And they said, well, you could submit an investigator-initiated project. The problem is the amount of money that it would cost would be enormous. And no one ever took the bull by the horns and done the study. I can tell you anecdotally, not only from my patients, but from some of my associates who take care of a large number of narcoleptic patients who are above the age of 65, that the amount of delta sleep, of slow wave sleep, as we age, even on Xyrem, decreases. We've never really been able to say, obviously, whether that decrease is a function of the disease or a function of aging or a combination thereof. We don't know. It doesn't disappear. So there is always some augmentation, some increase in delta sleep that the Xyrem gives you, which is a fascinating effect of the drug. I don't know of any other drug that has the strength to augment slow wave sleep like sodium oxybate does. There are drugs that do that increase it, but a tenth of what sodium oxybate does. So doesn't normalize it. It changes as we age, but to what extent, don't know.
Yeah. What is the statistics about somebody that had a very bad reaction to Xyrem?
We have no data on that, but I'm aware of it. If Jazz has that information, they haven't shared it with me. Yeah.
Do your need for different types of sleep change as you age?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. As we age, well, it's a chicken and egg. As we age, delta sleep decreases, slow wave sleep decreases. Now, is that a physiologic manifestation that we need less? We don't know.
This is what we get.
It's what we get. You go with who brought you. And so it's a function of what we see, not what we need. So.
Have you seen a decrease in cataplexy with age?
Yes. Yes, I have. I have seen a decrease in the frequency of cataplexy attacks as people age. Now, most of my patients are on medication, so their cataplexy was brought under control many years before. But I have interviewed patients who come to me off of medications and say, yeah, I had lots of cataplexy when I was in my 20s and 30s, and then when I was in my 40s, it started to get a little bit better. So, again, that's anecdotal. I've never put all of these patients together to do a study. But that seems to be the case. And based on what Dr. Duvalier showed, if you decrease the transitions into REM sleep, you should decrease the number of cataplexy episodes. Because cataplexy is really nothing more than a REM intrusion into wakefulness. In this case, it's muscle tone as opposed to sleep.
Same question around sleep paralysis and Dr. Diagnostic decrease.
I don't know. That's an interesting question. One can hope, absolutely.
Do you have any advice on treating depression over 60?
I'm not a psychiatrist, but I can tell you that depression and suicide increases where I get over age 60. So yes, I would be very much in favor of getting on top of depression as we get older, if only because the statistics are very clear that suicide is a definite increase as we age. Last question.
On sleep, the emphasis, you and others, on the importance of sleep, but people I know with narcolepsy, 7, 8, 9 hours of sleep, you don't get good sleep. There's no such thing as restorative sleep.
There's no such thing as a cure for narcolepsy either. I mean, I feel for you, I understand.
But does this sleep that is not all that good, Is that something that increases with age or?
I wish I could stand here and tell you that we know that, we don't. All right, sir.
What is the explanation for the difference between type 1 and type 2 narcolepsy?
Well, the clearest explanation is type 2 narcolepsy does not have cataplexy. Okay. Well, if you will, it's because the level of orexin in the spine, in the central nervous system, is not very low or absent. It is either normal or just slightly low. It ain't T2, correct. That's how we differentiate it. All right, well, listen, thank you all.